Emily had sensed something unusual in her husband, Daniel, for almost a week. It wasn't anything dramatic, just the way he kept smiling at random moments, the way his eyes lit up when she walked into the room, or the way he seemed to hide a secret behind every soft laugh. She could tell he was planning something, but she couldn't decide whether to be excited or nervous about it. Lately, their marriage had been calm on the surface, but strangely distant underneath. They still cared for each other, still shared soft goodnight wishes. But the spark had dimmed under long work hours, deadlines, and unspoken worries. So watching her husband glow with some hidden excitement made her hope something good was coming. On Friday morning, in their small but warm Seattle apartment, sunlight spilled across the kitchen table while Emily drank her coffee. Daniel walked in with that same secret tucked behind his grin. For a moment, he simply stood there, as if preparing himself. Then he finally spoke. "Pack a bag," he said, trying to sound casual. "We're going away for the weekend." Emily put her mug down, eyebrows lifting. "What? Right now?" He nodded confidently. "Right now?" She was surprised, but also relieved. She needed a break from everything: work, stress, routines, the quiet distance she didn't know how to talk about. She hoped this trip meant Daniel was trying to fix things too. She asked where they were going, but he wouldn't tell her. He only smiled like a man who had made the perfect plan. Emily packed quickly. Clothes, sunscreen, a jacket, comfortable shoes. She barely thought about what she was throwing in the suitcase. She was too busy imagining long walks with Daniel, quiet conversations, maybe even a moment to talk about the things that had been weighing on her heart. She didn't want anything extravagant. She just wanted time. Time with him and time away from everything else. They drove north along the coast. The highway curved around cliffs and forests, and the scenery slowly shifted from city life to tall pines and open water. Emily rolled down her window for fresh air. For the first time in a long while, she felt something close to hope. She imagined sitting beside Daniel by a fireplace, sharing stories again like they used to. She imagined laughter. She imagined closeness, but halfway through the drive, Daniel cleared his throat in that cautious way he always did when he was about to say something he thought she might not like. "There's something else," he said. Emily straightened. "Okay, what is it?" He kept his eyes on the road. "I invited a few friends. They're meeting us at the cabin." The words landed heavier than she expected. Emily didn't get angry. She didn't shout. She didn't accuse him of ruining anything. But a quiet disappointment slipped into her chest. She had imagined a weekend just for the two of them. She had imagined time to reconnect, share worries, and remember why they fell in love. Inviting friends meant noise, distractions, and less space for them to fix anything. Still, she didn't want to ruin the mood. She didn't want to seem ungrateful. She had always tried to be supportive, even when she didn't fully understand his decisions. All of them. She asked softly. "Yeah," he said. "I thought you'd like them. They've all wanted to spend more time with you." Forced a smile. "It's fine. It'll be fun." Daniel relaxed instantly, not picking up on the small tremble in her voice. He squeezed her hand and said he was glad she was excited. Emily didn't correct him. She turned her gaze toward the trees outside and tried to convince herself the weekend would still be meaningful. When they finally arrived, the cabin surprised Emily. It was bigger than she expected. 2 stories. Wooden walls, wide windows overlooking the water. Warm light glowed from inside. It looked like something from a travel magazine. For a moment she felt some of her disappointment fade. Maybe this could still be special. As soon as they stepped inside, familiar voices filled the space. Daniel's friends had already arrived and were full of excitement. There was Claire, lively and energetic, the kind of person who could make a room feel brighter just by walking into it. Jason was there too, quiet and observant, someone who always seemed to be thinking deeply even when he wasn't speaking. And then there was Matthew. Matthew stood by the kitchen counter pouring drinks for everyone. When he turned and smiled at Emily, she felt a small shock of recognition, even though she had only met him briefly once before. He had warm brown eyes that made people feel calm and understood. Something about the way he looked at her made her feel seen instead of simply welcomed. They all greeted her with warmth. Claire pulled her in for a hug, talking quickly about how excited she was for the weekend. Jason asked if they needed help with bags. Matthew simply smiled and said he was glad she came. Emily appreciated the kindness. She really did. And for a moment, she let herself enjoy the cheerful atmosphere. But as the evening went on, Emily realized something she hadn't expected. Daniel had fallen into his own world again. He and Jason started talking about work almost immediately, disappearing into a corner of the living room. Claire entertained everyone with stories from college, but those stories often involved only her and Matthew. Emily found herself laughing politely. Even when she didn't fully understand the jokes, she didn't want to seem out of place. She tried asking questions, joining conversations, and staying present. But slowly, quietly, she began to feel like a visitor in her own weekend. Daniel barely glanced her way except to check whether she needed another drink. His attention was somewhere else entirely by the time dinner ended. The chatter had grown louder, but Emily felt small in the noise. She walked outside onto the porch to get some air. The ocean stretched out below the cabin, dark and endless. Cold night air wrapped around her, but it felt calming compared to the crowded room behind her. She leaned against the railing and wondered why she felt so lonely at a weekend that was supposed to bring her and Daniel closer. A moment later, the porch door opened. Emily expected it to be Daniel, finally noticing her absence. But it wasn't him. It was Matthew. He stepped outside quietly, not wanting to startle her. "Are you okay?" he asked. His voice was soft and gentle, not demanding. She took a small breath. "Yeah, just needed some fresh air." Matthew nodded as if he understood more than she was saying. He leaned against the railing beside her, leaving a respectful space between them. "It's a lot of energy in there," he said. "Some people need a moment away from that." Emily looked at him, surprised by how quickly he understood. "You noticed?" He shrugged lightly. "I notice things sometimes, especially when someone looks like they're pretending they're fine." She didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to explain everything, how she had hoped for a weekend alone with Daniel, how she felt like she didn't belong inside, how the distance in her marriage scared her. But she didn't say any of that. She only looked at the ocean, letting his words settle over her. Matthew didn't push her to talk. He didn't ask questions. He simply stood there beside her, quiet but present. It felt strangely comforting. She felt understood without saying a word. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. After a long moment, the cabin door opened again. This time, it was Daniel. "There you are," he said, sounding cheerful but distracted. "You okay?" Emily forced herself to smile. "Yeah, I'm fine. We're starting a game inside. You coming?" "Sure," she said. She walked back into the cabin, but the calm she felt on the porch didn't follow her. Instead, a small, complicated emotion grew inside her, part confusion, part curiosity, part something she didn't want to examine too closely. She wasn't sure what the rest of the weekend would bring. She only knew it was already nothing like she had imagined. And the strangest part was how every moment felt like the beginning of something she didn't yet understand. The first night at the cabin ended with laughter spilling into the dark, cold air outside. Emily had managed to join the conversations, even shared a few stories herself. But something inside her remained unsettled. Daniel seemed happy with the group, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that he had drifted from her. That familiar closeness they used to share felt like it was buried under the noise of friends, chatter, and easy jokes. She longed for a moment just with him, a quiet corner where they could speak honestly, where her heart could stop racing from the unexpectedness of it all. Morning came too quickly. The scent of the ocean and pine floated into their bedroom as Emily rubbed her eyes and listened to Daniel moving about. She expected him to bring coffee to the porch or maybe start another conversation with her. But when she opened the door, he was already talking and laughing with Claire in the kitchen. She paused, taking a deep breath. Maybe she could join them. Maybe this weekend would slowly unfold into something good, even if it wasn't what she had imagined. Breakfast was lively. Pancakes and scrambled eggs, the warmth of coffee cups in their hands. The aroma of cinnamon and syrup pits should have felt comforting. But Emily couldn't help noticing how Daniel's attention kept slipping away, drifting to his friends. He leaned toward Jason to share stories, laughed at inside jokes, and didn't seem aware of the little hints she dropped, the attempts to engage him in conversation. Matthew sat nearby watching the small dynamics unfold, occasionally glancing at Emily as if he understood the story she hadn't spoken aloud yet. After breakfast, Daniel suggested a hike. The trail was steep and wild, with tall trees on either side and distant views of the ocean sparkling in the morning sun. Emily tried to focus on the beauty around her, on the smell of wet leaves and the sound of birds. But she couldn't shake the quiet ache of noticing Daniel interacting easily with friends while she felt like a shadow beside him. She had thought this trip would be theirs. It's a chance to reconnect after months of tired routines and missed opportunities. Matthew walked beside her as they climbed. "It's a beautiful view, ice and tea," he said casually, but there was a gentle concern in his tone. Emily nodded, adjusting her backpack strap. "Yes, I just didn't expect this many people. I thought it would be quieter." Ah, he chuckled softly. "I get it. Sometimes the energy of a group can feel like it swallows you. But maybe it's temporary. You'll find a moment for just you two." She wanted to believe him, but she couldn't help the tiny doubt creeping in. Maybe Daniel didn't realize how much she needed a private conversation. Maybe he thought this kind of fun would automatically fix things. The trail ended at a viewpoint overlooking the cliffs. Waves crashed against rocks far below. The wind whipped Emily's hair around, and for the first time that morning, she felt a little free. She leaned on the railing, letting the cold air fill her lungs. Matthew joined her silently, standing at a respectful distance. He didn't speak at first, letting the moment stretch between them. "Do you feel like you can breathe here?" he asked finally. Emily looked at him, startled by the question. "Yes and no," she admitted. "I feel calm, but at the same time, I feel disconnected, like I'm missing something I thought I would have here." Matthew nodded slowly. "I understand. Sometimes the things we imagine don't match reality. But maybe this is just the first step. A small break to reset before the real conversation happens." She wanted to argue, to say that the real conversation was now, that it should have been happening all along. But instead, she remained quiet, taking in the view and letting the words sink in. The rest of the day moved in a blur of activities. Lunch by the beach, where the group played volleyball and swam in the chilly water. Emily laughed more than she expected, enjoying the sound of Claire's bright voice. The easy camaraderie between Daniel and Jason. And yet, throughout it all, her heart kept noticing the small distance. Daniel's hand never brushed hers. His eyes never lingered. And the private moments she longed for never arrived by late afternoon. The group had settled into a cozy living room in the cabin. The fire crackled warmly, and someone suggested they all share stories from the past year. Emily watched Daniel laugh heartily at a memory from Jason's trip to Europe. The kind of laughter that used to be reserved for just the two of them. A pang of longing ran through her chest. She wanted to feel that way about her marriage again, wanted to remember the intimacy, the subtle touch of connection that had been buried under daily life. Then Matthew spoke to her quietly, just outside the circle of conversation. "It's okay to feel left out," he said softly. "You're not weak or distant. You just need to find your moment with him." Emily exhaled, a little of the tension easing. "I don't want to ruin the weekend. I wanted this to be ours. I thought we'd have time alone." He gave her a kind, understanding look. "Maybe it's not ruined. Maybe it's different. You'll get your moment. Sometimes we just need patience to get the right timing." She nodded, feeling strangely comforted by his presence. It wasn't romantic in a shocking way. It was the kind of understanding that reminded her of why she loved Daniel in the first place. Because love could be quiet, supportive, and steady even in unexpected situations. Evening came, and Daniel suggested they cook dinner together. Emily volunteered to help, and for a short while, she and Daniel moved around the kitchen side by side. The warm smell of onions, garlic, and roasting vegetables filled the air. She caught glimpses of his smile, the soft warmth in his eyes when he looked at her. It was subtle, but it reminded her of the connection they still had. After the meal, the group decided to play a board game. Emily sat across from Daniel, watching him laugh, teasing Jason and Claire with playful remarks. He reached for her hand briefly as he passed her a card, and her heart jumped at the simple gesture. For the first time that day, she felt like she wasn't just a background presence. She realized that Daniel was noticing her, even if it was in small moments. Later, everyone went outside to watch the stars. Emily found herself walking beside Daniel alone. The ocean stretched in darkness below, and the sky was clear, full of tiny, glittering lights. The wind was cool, and the rhythmic sound of waves filled the silence. "I'm glad you came," Daniel said softly, finally turning to look at her properly. "I know this weekend was different than you imagined, but I wanted us to experience something new together." Emily took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of relief and emotion. "It was different, yes, but I think I understand why you wanted this. I just needed a few moments to adjust." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was gentle, unhurried, full of the quiet intimacy they had almost forgotten. "I missed you," he whispered. "I wanted to see you smile like you used to, laugh like we did when we first met." Our eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. "I missed you too. I felt a little lost with all of them around." He nodded, understanding without needing more words. "I'll remember next time. Our time first, the rest later." For the first time that weekend, Emily felt the tension lift. The night wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. The small, quiet moments of attention, care, and shared presence reminded her that even when life throws unexpected challenges, love could still find a way later. As she lay in bed beside Daniel, she reflected on the weekend. It had started with disappointment, uncertainty, and quiet longing. But it was ending with hope, connection, and a renewed understanding of her husband's love. She realized that life wouldn't always follow a perfect plan, that joy sometimes arrived in unexpected forms, and that patience, understanding, and gentle communication could turn a potentially frustrating situation into a meaningful experience. Even though his friends were still there, laughing and enjoying the cabin, Emily felt a sense of quiet confidence. She and Daniel had found their space within the weekend. A moment that reminded them of why they had chosen each other years ago. Love wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was found in small gestures, quiet conversations, and shared glances under the stars. As she drifted off to sleep, she thought about the rest of the weekend. She knew challenges might come, as they always did, but she also knew that they could navigate them together. And in that knowledge, in that soft, steady comfort, she found herself smiling and feeling genuinely content, more in love than she had in months, ready to embrace whatever the rest of their lives and even this weekend might bring.